pouring from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Without further ado, I am going to plunge right in because we have a lot of ground to cover today. And notwithstanding Aurora's playfulness and naughtiness, I would like us to make some headway. So I am going to plunge right in, and hopefully they won't create too much havoc. But they are playing, and hopefully we won't have to put them outside. Jennifer Cook says, I'm so very pleased that Her Dear Majesty refused to let their kid be photographed with her. Can you imagine what that woman would have done with that photo? Spread it all over the American press and boosted herself even higher in her mind and made millions of dollars out of it. No, all she has is the kid on her own on grass. Could be any old grass. Hooray! God save the Queen. Well, Jennifer Cook, you are obviously referring to the photograph of Lilibet that has been published now that Meghan and Harry have curtailed it back to America, tail between their legs, trip curtailed. How to spin failure and snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. So what do? They go back, they immediately release a photograph of Lilibet, as if everybody has been waiting with bated breath for the sight of that child. And really, truth be told, no one really cares except for their camp followers, because you don't have affection for those you don't know. You only have affection for those whom you do know and who have earned your regard. But yes, wasn't the Queen clever? No photographs, nothing to be merged. You see, the family has learned its lessons. Isn't that interesting? And not only has the family learned its lessons, but the public now understand that the family are onto them and are outmaneuvering them. Isn't that a positive? And it's taken a while for people to figure it out, and it's only been in the last week or so that the royal family's tactic, which I have been trying to say for some time, was very measured and very long-term and would be ultimately successful, that people have finally started to see the merit of their technique. Gilly Penn says, it's actually very sad that the one-time most popular royal after Her Majesty the Queen should have allowed his wife to get into this position. He, brackets they, have no one to blame but themselves. Greed. Do I agree? Well, I think in his case it's need as opposed to greed. He needs to receive the source, S-A-U-C-E, from the source, S-O-U-R-C-E, of his addiction, because he is addicted to Meghan. She, if it's not greed, it's a pretty convincing simulation of it. But yes, what an accomplishment. In 3 years to go from number 2 to 0. Quite an accomplishment. Sally Kennedy says, I think they have already not learnt anything. They went home and plastered media with the Lilibet photos. They had articles that sounded like the trip was about them. Well, of course, their trip was about them. I think it will fit into Meghan's narrative that they were done wrong by the firm. She made a total ass out of Harry when she rolled down that window, given her fare, and their fare is in apostrophes, and their ultra level security need, and the current lawsuit. Well, Sally Kennedy, my understanding is that he was not pleased because, first of all, she was breaking the agreement that they were to keep a low profile and behave themselves. And secondly, because I suspect even Harry, with his IQ of 27, was able to spot immediately that this means the court can now see that their claims were exaggerated, that their needs were invented, that they don't really have any fear beyond the fear of being ignored. Certainly, they're not afraid for their security, because if they were afraid for their security, they wouldn't roll down the windows of a bullet-proofed vehicle. All bullets welcome, as long as they are accompanied by flashbulbs. And his not very convincing that he starts to shudder as soon as he sees a flashbulb. Talk about exposing yourself. I mean, they couldn't have done a better job of it if they were their own worst enemy. Carol Fernley says, Me again is obviously so overconfident in her manipulations. She took on our beloved queen, convinced she could outmaneuver her, but she took on a master chess player and ended up humiliating herself and her husband. She has thought herself so clever and brilliant she could bring down the monarchy. Stupid woman had no idea that the Queen at 96 is one of the wisest and most beloved women, in fact, people in the world. She has reigned for 70 glorious years. Me again has absolutely underestimated her. Hasn't she just? I couldn't agree more. You know, the problem with the Meghans of this world is that, in fact, the problems with most Machiavellian people is unless they're super duper clever, they are very obvious. If they're super duper clever, they catch you out. But once you are the victim of a Machiavellian character, you actually do know when you have been stung. I can tell you, I know what I'm talking about. My mother was Machiavellian, and she set up many, quite frankly, disgusting scenario, always for her own benefit, usually at someone else's expense. And the problem with people like that is they're always maneuvering. But ultimately, once you're onto them, it's just a matter of time before you find a way of having them maneuver themselves into the trap they have set for you. And the Queen has done this very effectively. I thought it was just brilliant how the Queen and her advisors used the Jubilee to unmask Harry and Meghan, to show them up for what they are, to show the world how unimportant they now are, to humiliate them in front of the whole world, and to do it with a loving embrace. If that's not a brilliant way of exposing people, I don't know what it is. Sammy H says, no sooner are the Harkles back in the USA than they are starting on the Cambridges and how they were invited to the birthday party but didn't attend. It appears just her photographer and his family were there. Was there even a party? It certainly didn't look like much of a party. No balloons, toys, bouncy castle things you would normally see at a children's party. And why no photos of Archie with his sister? Well, Sammy H., there are answers to that. First of all, yes, they went back to the States and they not only have used Lilibet's party and exposing Lilibet to public inspection for their own commercial ends. Because if they really wanted privacy, they wouldn't have exposed her the way they have, would they? So they're being very inconsistent. But it is a commodity to be utilized, and it was. So, first picture of Lilibet. Release these photographs. Oh, isn't she sweet? Isn't she cute? And yes, she is sweet and she's cute, and we can't blame the child for whence she came or what she came from or who she is living with. We can't blame her for any of that. So I think we need to keep the children sacrosanct. But haven't they exploited her? And then what do? They say that they asked William and Catherine and the children, knowing fully well that William and Catherine were in Wales, that it was a scheduled visit, that these visits are organised 6 months in advance, which both Harry and Meghan know. So it's somewhat disingenuous to say that they had asked them and allow everybody to believe that they had been snubbed when they haven't been snubbed. There was never any prospect of them attending. Or maybe the other messages, we asked William and Catherine and the kids, and they put duty before us, wicked people, and they should put family first the way we do. One act of compassion at a time. Well, either way, they've got a slur in there somewhere. And maybe a boost, because they are perpetuating or trying to perpetuate the fiction through their propagandists, namely Sunshine Sachs and Amid Scabies, that study in plasticity and artifice. Somebody said he's Meghan Markle's identical twin brother. How does that one work? I'm not quite sure, but he certainly has several leaves out of her book and she has several leaves out of his book. And yes, they have their propagandists telling everybody that William and Harry are now back in touch, speaking 8 times a second. 8 Zoom calls every second. And H and Megsy Baby are teaching William. They're teaching William how to be a proper prince, because William and Catherine have to be jealous of them, because William and Catherine are real stars while they are. And they're going to show William and maybe Catherine the way to true stardom. Hence why William and Catherine are flourishing and they are withering on the vine. But either way, they've got the message across and they are capitalizing. And they are relentless. Let me tell you something. People like that are relentless. They're shameless, they're relentless, and they don't learn a lesson. They just don't. They can't learn a lesson. They really can't. So, just you arriving in California by private jet. Remember, they're so important that they can't fly commercial. One massive carbon footprint at a time, just to show the world that they are eco-warriors fighting the good fight to set the planet afire. If they can't do it in terms of PR, they're going to do it in terms literally. So much for being eco-warriors. Well, Deb Strout, I've sort of covered that already, but I will say they humiliated themselves before they ever got to the UK, because they, in their cack-handed way, set up the situation for them to be humiliated. And they were. So their humiliation is entirely due to the fact that they thought they were so much cleverer than everybody else that they would be able to trash everybody, come here and press buttons and manipulate the way Meghan's used to manipulating people. And it has to be said, Harry's a bit of a manipulator himself as well. Deb Strout says, they humiliated themselves before they ever got to the UK. Why are they so surprised? Lady C, what is your take on the Sussexes' announcement that they issued an invitation to the Cambridges and their children as an olive branch to Lily's first birthday party? Well, Deb Strout, you've asked a fairly long question, so I'm going to take it in bits. We've covered that. It's absolute rubbish. It's crass manipulation. It's, in the vernacular, what they call BS, and that's not Bachelor of Science either. Lady C, Amber Heard has slammed Johnny Depp for posting a montage of TikTok thanking his supporters, and is claiming that women's rights are moving backwards as a result of the defamation verdict. May we please have your take on this? Meghan and Harry have issued snaps of Lilibet's birthday party. Is this a ploy hoping to distract from their failure in the UK? Well, to take the last one first, obviously it's a ploy to distract from their failure in the UK. Evidently, it's all over not only the American press, but the Australian press, the world's press, that Harry and Meghan were booed and that they have been exposed as being unimportant also-rans, and that they were so upset about it that they had to flee the country like thieves in the night. They fled with what they had managed to acquire and scurried away before the celebrations had even come to an end. Now, as for Amber Heard slamming Johnny Depp for posting a montage on TikTok thanking his supporters and claiming that women's rights are moving backwards as a result of the defamation verdict. Again, we have it, another cack-handed manipulator who doesn't seem to understand people see through her. These women don't get it. They think they're so clever that no one can see through them. And they don't realize that a goodly proportion of the public has seen straight through them. I actually say, as somebody who was abused by my husband, that I think that Amber Heard has done the women's movement a great disservice. Women's rights are not moving backwards because Amber Heard has been exposed as a fraud, a liar, a phony, a cheat, and a malevolent, a vicious adventuress who will do anything and sacrifice anyone for fame and fortune, and thought that Johnny Depp was going to be not only her key to fame, but he was going to, after she had destroyed his career and boosted herself and turned herself into a heroine in the pantheon of the goddesses of victimhood. People have seen straight through her. I saw through her. I'm one of many. I'm one of the many tens, if not hundreds of millions who saw straight through her. The woman is as artificial as a $3 bill or a Duchess of Sussex. Her claims that women's rights are moving backwards are an impertinence. She is now trying to use the women's movement abusively, the way she used the public and the legal system and Johnny Depp abusively. Personally, I think that Amber Heard should disappear, but she's not going to disappear, at least not without giving it her finest shot. Because the Amber Heards and Meghan Markles of this world are like the ocean. They are relentless. The wave goes and washes up on the shore. It ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows, endlessly, relentlessly, and quite frankly, tiresomely. Maureen Ingleston says, I'm delighted that the part the gruesome twosome played in the Jubilee was minuscule. It proved to all of us that Her Majesty the Queen listened to and respected the wishes of the public. The Queen is a very smart, classy lady. In the history books, this will show that no matter how much Her Majesty the Queen loved her family, she would never allow traitors, big block capitals, to hold her to ransom. she certainly showed that not only would she not be held to ransom, but nor would she allow the British people to be held to ransom. Notice the Jubilee was an absolute study in inclusiveness, in multiculturalism, in great love and respect for the Queen and for the monarchy. It didn't only affirm the love that the British people have for the Queen, it showed the love and the affection and the regard that we, the British people, have for the royal family generally. And it showed that Harry and Meghan's lies about the British royal family being racist and the British people being racist are easily refuted. Just look at the footage. Look at the people who celebrated the Queen's reign. Look at the people who willingly joined the party in all of its many aspects. Look at the people who contributed to it. It is a living evocation of the lies being refuted that Harry and Meghan so brazenly told on Oprah. And yes, I have been trying to say for some time now that people needed to give the Queen and the royal family a chance so that they would ultimately be able to see that the royal family and the Queen were dealing with the Harry and Meghan situation in a loving, kind, positive, but definite way. Now, there's no doubt that they haven't trashed Meghan and Harry. They haven't been nasty to Meghan and Harry. Harry and Meghan have got what they wanted. They wanted out. They wanted to be non-working royals. They got that. They also got the status that goes along with it. And they are furious that the status that goes along with it, or I should say lack of status that goes along with it, has been visibly hammered home to the world at large. Yes, the Queen came up with a beautiful and elegant way of putting them in their place and getting the message across. And it's been got across loud and clear. My understanding is that Netflix is at the moment very upset, very disturbed, and that Harry and Meghan are hanging on by a thread. Let's see how this pans out. Julie Cowlam says, "You would have thought that Just Call Me Harry would have been perfectly happy to be seated with his favourite cousin, Eugenie, and of course the Wessexes would have been seated in front of Harry as he is the Queen's son. But Harry turns up wearing all his medals with great pride because despite saying he didn't want to be royal, he just can't accept that he is no longer relevant to all the trappings of it. What a hypocrite." Then don't forget how he said that his father and William were trapped, yet they didn't realise it yet in a system that they couldn't get out of. The working royals I saw over the weekend didn't look trapped at all. They looked like happy humans enjoying themselves with their extended family. The way Harry left St. Paul's Cathedral on Friday, he appeared a very miserable, angry adult, throwing his toys out of his pram cause he couldn't sit on the other side, then had a tantrum when he got boos from the British public. Harry doesn't seem to know who he is or where he stands in life. Thanks to his wife, he has lost sight of reality. Well, that's a very relevant and appropriate set of comments. There is nothing happier than a duty-driven person who does his or her duty and does it well. That doesn't mean that you have to like what you're doing all the time. Sacrifice requires that you do not, no matter what you're doing, no matter how much you love what you're doing, enjoy it all the time. That's reality. Nobody enjoys everything that they're doing all the time. It is immature, unrealistic, and quite frankly, plain plumb dumb to think that anybody can not resent, dislike, be upset by, stressed out by, dissatisfied with aspects of their job, irrespective of what the job is. That's called the human condition. But the royals are committed to their roles, and they have embraced them, and they achieve fulfillment from them because they are serving the nation. They are serving the people of the Commonwealth. They are serving the monarchy. Harry and Meghan are serving themselves. They are serving mammon. They are serving their bank accounts. They are the hard cashians. Is it any surprise that rather than a catalogue of fulfillment, you have a catalogue of misery? No, it isn't, and it shouldn't be, and it can't be, because it profiteth not a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul. It says it very clearly in the Bible, and it's absolutely true. There are great works of literature dedicated to the theme. Dr. Faustus is but one. The Mephistophelian bargain. Read your Christopher Marlowe. There are loads of examples. Yes, Harry and Meghan have made the wrong choice. They could have stayed, had fabulous ways of life, had the platform to do genuine good, been revered throughout the world. Only thing is, no moolah for doing their duty. No actual transactional reward. No, well, if I shake the hand of the mayor, how many dollars am I going to get for that? None of that. That was the rub. He knows what he's lost. The tragedy is she's never known what she stood to gain, and never will, because she doesn't have the heart, the soul, or the vision. You can't be a money grabber and spiritually evolved at the same time. The two things are incompatible. Sophie DLC says, Dear Lady C, could you comment on the seats where the Harkles were seated in the cathedral? Which persons were before them, rank, age, seniority? Because it seems that this was a big humiliation for the Harkles not to be seated at least in the front row. Sophie DLC, you have hit the nail very firmly on the head, and you have alighted upon the false assumption that Harry and Meghan made. And she would have not understood. He understood where he thought he ought to be seated as number 6 in the line of succession. He didn't understand that even though he's number 6 in the line of succession, as a non-working royal, he had fallen down the scales of precedence. There are other situations that are akin to it, that are equally anomalous. And I'll tell you one. There are rules governing who curtsies to whom when. Whenever the husband of a non-born royal woman is present, other royals have to curtsy to her in certain situations if a curtsy is warranted. However, when the husband is absent, even though the non-born royal woman takes precedence over a born royal woman, when her husband isn't present, the born royal woman takes precedence over the wife who was not born royal. So there are anomalies in the system. To what extent Harry and Meghan would be aware of them? Well, he's very dumb and she's deliberately ignorant. And I really wouldn't know to what extent they were au fait with, for instance, that rule. They should have been. But where they're concerned, the shoulds don't apply. So maybe we shouldn't even think of should in this situation. However, another anomaly is that now that Harry and Meghan are no longer working royals, they have fallen down the order of precedence for occasions like St. Paul's. He didn't realize it. I am reliably informed. It came as a huge shock to him to realize where he was being seated. He knew that he was supposed to appear along with what he and she would regard as the also-rans. But he assumed evidently that he would be seated in keeping with his status in the line of succession. And he wasn't. Because one rule that he thought should apply to him across the board didn't apply. I mean, he makes false assumptions and gets caught out with them. Another false assumption he made by his own admission was when they decamped and he discovered that he wasn't entitled to security anymore, since when they have used her Rachel Zainism to try to force the issue legally. Well, you know, they say one plane crash away from the throne. Well, I think it's one roll down window away from establishing yourself as an internationally protected person whose safety is constantly under threat, because you have confirmed willingly to the world that you are fully aware of the fact that your safety is not under threat. So I think hopefully that clears it up. But it's the seats in the cathedral that he understood, and so did she. And she actually would have understood even better than he would, because she's a hustler who's hustled those buns up to the first row. And now they're relegated to the second row, and not even on the premier side of the aisle, but on the secondary side of the aisle. So second rate in two ways, not just in one. And as I said before, even Lord and Lady Frederick Windsor were on the correct side in the front row. And Lord and Lady Frederick Windsor are way down, not only in the line of succession, but they are way down in the order of precedence. And they superseded Harry and Meg's baby. Oh dear, my heart bleeds for them, bleeds. I think I better get Mickey or Aurora to come and give me a kiss. But Mickey is sleeping on the opposite sofa, and Aurora is chewing up a bone. Cynthia Irwin says, elegant and sophisticated snubbing that was seen and heard by billions of people worldwide was the royal icing on the cake. Simply delicious, wasn't it just? Nothing they think, print, or spit out of their vile mouths and as pieces will ever be believed. Time's to stop trying to rule the world. The position has been filled. Cynthia Irwin, very good comment. And I'm going to read out another very good comment, because this shows that people all over the world are au fait with what has happened. And no matter how Meghan and Harry spin it, once you've seen that the rat is a rat, you're not going to unsee it, even when it slaps on lipstick and Dior. James Latham says, I live in the USA, but I have the greatest respect and admiration for Queen Elizabeth. It was truly touching to see the appreciation and love shown for her by her people. I love that she seems to be doing pretty much what she wants when she wants these days, instead of being managed and handled like some circus chimp. She wasn't, actually, in fairness to them, she wasn't managed and handled like a circus chimp, but she was very much a willing performing seal. Everyone has to be, who has a public profile, to an extent, be a willing performing seal. It goes along with the territory, but very drolly put. I thought she gave the Duke of Kent a well-deserved honour, when they appeared alone together on the balcony. Couldn't agree more. The Paddington Bear touch was priceless. Couldn't agree more. Regarding the afterthought they've made themselves, it was good to see Harry and Meghan reaping the rewards of their treachery. Wasn't it just? They exposed themselves, and they were exposed brilliantly. Dream of Paris says, I just finished your Diana in Private book. I was blown away by how much she was like Meghan when it came to getting what she wanted. That's a very interesting observation. I wrote the Diana book 31 years ago. I don't really remember everything about it, but I certainly do remember that Diana left no stone unturned to get her own way, and that she didn't scruple when she wished to have her own way with the niceties too much. What she did do, however, was she was canny enough to not be quite so obvious as Meghan has been. But yes, Diana could be devious and manipulative. But there are substantial differences between Diana and Meghan. Diana was not anti-royalist. Diana did not regard herself as somebody who should exploit the royal situation to the detriment of the monarchy. Meghan doesn't care about the monarchy. Meghan only cares about sucking and exploiting as much out of, extracting as much out of every bit of stone that she can get. Not only fruit and everything else, but even stone. But there are parallels. I've often said, in some ways, Harry married his mother. There are definite parallels, but Diana had virtues, and I have to emphasize this because it's important. Diana had genuine virtues that Meghan lacks. Diana had redeeming features. I am yet to see one redeeming feature that Meghan Markle has. That doesn't mean she doesn't have talents and abilities and gifts from God, but it does mean that in a qualitative sense, zilch, zero. Diana wasn't zilch or zero. She was deeply troubled, and also Diana's troubles were born of a very unhappy childhood situation with her parents. So Diana was damaged by the destructiveness of her father and his vengefulness towards her mother. Meghan Markle was not damaged by the vengefulness of either parent. We need to remember that when Harry met Meghan, she was on such good terms with both her parents that first year Harry paid for a venue and gave Meghan and her parents a Thanksgiving dinner with a chef, the whole 9 yards. Meghan's father and mother got along well. I know that from Thomas Markle himself. I also know it from other people who have known the family over the decades. Doria and Thomas Markle got along. Meghan was never victimized or sacrificed the way Diana and Charles were damaged as a result of the antics, primarily of their father, not of their mother, although their mother was a little bit hyper as well, and overly dramatic and overly emotional. But her failings were those of a loving mother who was fighting to retain her rights as a mother. Doria didn't need to fight for any rights. Thomas Markle paid for her and was generous to her and to Meghan long after they were divorced. The fact that Doria and Meghan don't speak to him now has nothing to do with the fact that he was a good father, husband, ex-husband, and provider for both of them. Even up to when Harry was in St. Lucia and Meghan was enjoying Thanksgiving dinner with her parents in a rented property. Gratis Harry. All of this is very important for reasons which I will not go into today. But this is an opportune moment to make the point. And on that note, I will say, I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and remember, keep the questions and comments coming in. This is a conversation. I need your input. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye.